Hello there, Shubha, Ghosh, and welcome to Table for One. Great to see you. You picked a fantastic film, and we're psyched to talk to you about it. So thanks for being here.
Yeah, thank you. I love talking about this movie. I first saw it in the summer of 1996 in San Francisco at the Embarcadero Cinema.
Oh, cool.
I saw it after taking a trip overseas, and so it's sort of like a welcome back to the United States after being gone for a few months.
Oh, wow.
And I think about this movie a lot. I always loved John Sayles. I saw his early stuff, Return of the Secaucus 7, and always followed it. I'm sorry to say I haven't really kept up with his movies, I think, after Limbo, for various reasons. Maybe I just haven't been near a good independent movie theater in a while. But this movie always blows me away. It's a mystery story. It's a romance. It's kind of even a political thriller. There's some things that you see, you don't know where it's going to go with all the things that are going on in the little town of Frontera. And so parts of it reminded me of Chinatown the first time I saw it. But just so much going on. I rewatched it this weekend. And it's a movie I thought about a lot during the pandemic and with the Me Too movement and Black Lives Matter and all the issues regarding the police. So I think it's a very timely movie, even though it's 26 years old. It hard to believe. I'm not 26 years old, for sure, but it begins beautiful beginning in the West Texas desert, Eagle Pass. I was just there a couple of months ago for a meeting, and then it ends in a drive-in movie theater that's dilapidating, which is kind of ironic because I think a lot of the drive-in movie theaters were sort of coming to a close. I know there are a couple I've seen in upstate New York and around Texas, and I think in California, but I think they're a thing of the past as well. So it's kind of an interesting ending, place for the ending of that movie. And just that final dialogue always moves me. I just, I don't actually probably, maybe if, nobody's there to see me, I don't actually cry at the end of the movie, but that movie always, that ending always makes me cry. Elizabeth Pena's performance and just the subtle way she says what she says really puts an excellent capper on that movie and just opens up a lot of things.
Do you want to describe real fast what Lone Star is about?
Oh, sure. I didn't get that cue. Sorry.
It's okay. Please, go ahead. Go ahead.
Well, it starts off in a border town called Frontera, filmed in Eagle Pass, Texas. And it starts off with the discovery of a skeleton out in the desert, a skeleton that has a Freemason ring and a badge attached to it. And the local sheriff has to investigate. He's just moved back to town. He grew up in that town and has come back after being away for a while. And he realizes his father, who was always the former sheriff of that town, may have been involved in the murder of this person, who turns out to be Charlie Wade, the big bad sheriff that had been controlling the town back in the late 50s. So it starts off with a murder investigation, but then it gets into an exploration of three families. Not only Sheriff Sam Deed's family with his deceased father, but also with three generations of an African-American family, three generations of a Latino family. And it touches on so many issues of the border, of immigration, of law and order, of past romance, of history, that I really don't want to say any more without giving it away. And it's got probably one of the best final lines of any movie that I've seen. It's fairly memorable. I mean that kind of ironically in some ways.
Well, this is just for you. No one's going to see this but you, so you're welcome to spoil away all you like.
Okay, yeah, that's why it's kind of odd. I guess I'm talking to myself.
No, you're talking.
I guess I can
do what
I want. Yeah. So I think let me just talk about, without going into all of the details of the plot directly, just talk about why I like this movie. Mm-hmm. I liked it at the time because of just the structure. I mean, Sayles is, started out as a novelist, and it has a real literary quality to it. But it really is just amazing to watch. The literary quality is just in the structure of the story and the structure of the characters. but the segues, the fade-ins, just the way he integrates memory into the depiction of the stories. As anybody who's seen it knows, he pans away, he goes, and then we're suddenly in the past, and then we play out the scene, and then he pans back, and we're back in the present. And I love the way silences are used in movies. And, there's just a lot of scenes of Sheriff Deeds just looking into space thinking, and you kind of know what he's thinking about, and you're sort of, in the moment with him and some of the other characters. So I think it's both a great novel made into a movie, but also a movie in its own right. So just simply watching it just kind of, takes me away, and still does take me away when I rewatch it. I'm sorry, go ahead. Were you going to ask me something?
I was going to say, it's a very rich tapestry. And Alonzo and I recently reviewed The Good House, which is, one thing he liked about it more than I did was the way the peripheral characters and the sense of place in the small town is as important as that central romance there. But this does that in such a high level, like an expert, rich, vivid way where you truly feel like you are getting to know every element of this town, of the racial divisions, of the history, the really fraught history of this place and its efforts to modernize, to become more ethnically diverse, more open-minded, but like those rifts are always there, the tensions are always there, and we see that even the talk about what's in the textbooks and what's in the history class, that could be now. Right, that could be now.
That's what struck me about watching it, rewatching it on Saturday, is how much the discussion in the bar, the fear of the bartender at one scene when he's talking to, Sam Deeds about, how do I put this, sort of, I'll put it bluntly, kind of white hegemony kind of falling away, the country, the town kind of becoming mixed, you're losing sort of traditions. I mean, that really resonated with, especially during the, Trump era type politics and discussion. So that was pretty amazing. And also just subtle things. I'm sorry, Rollins, just real quick. Just subtle things like things shutting down and getting replaced by jails. That was kind of something that really resonated now. Especially somebody who teaches law about, and especially when Sheriff Deeds, the third generation lawmaker in Frontera, saying, I'm no longer a sheriff, I'm a jailer. So just subtle things like that, those types of changes, whole decision whether to build a mall or to build a jail. So I think there are a lot I could talk about more that I think is really relevant for 2022. Sorry, Alonzo, I didn't mean to.
No, I was just going to say, I think there are a lot of great ideas in this movie and a lot of great performances and individual moments that really land. But what I find kind of oppressive about the way John Sayles writes is that he just has such a sledgehammer. Like all those flashbacks, it gets to be like, we're going to have another flashback, aren't we? And we do. And it's like, yes, we get it. This movie's about how the past dictates the present and how nothing is ever really in history. It's always still all around us. But it's like he makes that point over and over and over again. And it's just like, it makes me kind of nuts because I feel like there is a very cool Chinatown sort of movie in this that you could, it either needs to be, I think, like stripped a lot barer and made less obvious with the very, I think, clunky transitions, or this is the kind of thing you could see really working as a limited series where you could really go deep in all of these communities, in all of the past stuff and all of the, in Mercedes's, story and in Otis's story and all of that stuff. It's something like HBO's Show Me a Hero, where they talk about the housing crisis from all these different viewpoints. But I just I think Sayles as a dramatist has so little subtlety that it gets on my nerves because I'm enjoying so much about this movie and I'm responding to so much in this movie. And you're right. So much of it is still super relevant. And these still conversations that we're having, particularly in Texas, but I think everywhere about the sins of America's past and how do we talk about race and all of that stuff. It's all there and it's all on paper. I'm like, I can objectively say, yes, this movie is addressing these things, but I just think the way that it does it is so heavy handed and so it gets oppressive for me, and it takes me out of all the things that I like in the film.
Yeah, so you're talking about some of the segues he does, the what I referred to earlier, kind of the panning of the camera.
Like almost every time something first of all, there are more conversations about the past in this movie in a very short time. Like, yes, I get it. They found a dead body. They're dedicating the courthouse, and the colonel is back in town. Like, there's all these reasons for it, but it's like, all anybody does in this movie is reminisce, and whenever they reminisce, we're going to get a flashback, and it's just like and it starts to become like a drinking game.
But I feel like back then, that probably, like, his use of transition was probably considered really, really cool, right? Where, like, the camera goes down to the tortilla basket, and then all of a sudden you're back with Matthew McConaughey and Christopher Stopperson, and they're taking the money out as the bribe. Like, I feel like probably at that point, it was a very innovative tactic.
It's funny because I saw this movie when it came out. I was telling Christy I saw it upstairs at the Inwood Theater in Dallas, where they turned the balcony into two upstairs theaters, and they never quite got the aspect ratio right. So a friend of mine and I joked that we would always call this movie "Own-Star" because like the sides would always get cut off. But I remember seeing it then in its original release and being kind of mixed about it. But then I hadn't thought about it in so long I couldn't remember why I was mixed, because I know that it has this reputation. And then watching it again, I was like, oh, that's why. So I think maybe even then it wasn't working for me.
It won. It got a nomination for a screenplay. It got an Oscar nomination for Best Screenplay.
Yes, and Elizabeth Pena won a very well-deserved Spirit Award.
Right. Yeah, I had no idea. I had forgotten, or maybe I never knew that. Like, she died really young of cirrhosis. Like, she was a serious alcoholic. I had no idea. And so to go back and watch her in this, like, she's so warm and grounded.
She's
and
so
sexy.
wonderful all the time.
She's
I really
so
miss
good
her.
in this. It's so hard. Like, and you're right, Shubha. The last line from her, when you realize what she's saying, like, it's so wrong but so right and so profound, and she sells it in a way that's like authentic and direct, and you believe that relationship could actually maybe flower.
Yeah, I love that ending, and I love how it ties to the thing that the colonel says, or that the son of the colonel says that the colonel says, which is that you basically are starting with a clean slate, and nothing that happened before matters. You're picking up at square one.
Yeah, I thought the Chinatown. I mean, that's what really strikes me. That's another movie I really love. But I mean, that's another movie where incest, is kind of a evil. I mean, it represents evil. Here, I mean, this is what's interesting about the movie. I mean, I know a lot of literary theorists have written about incest in novels and, Romantic era, Rousseau. And so it's just interesting the way incest and mixing, and it makes it wonder whether it's really incest or not at the end, right? Just speaking as a lawyer, or even if, there's no intent. I mean, I guess now it would be. So there's kind of the legalistic side to this that I actually really liked.
And the larger idea of like, why should we allow ourselves to be oppressed by the sins of the past?
Right. Yeah, I mean, and I just love the three generations. I just love the way that flowed. I think you're right. Maybe it would be a limited series would be better. I don't know if they've talked about it. As I say, I've actually not kept up with John Sayles' movies or what he's doing. So the last several I've seen, I didn't really care for all that much. But, I loved everything before Lone Star, and then then Lone Star itself. And then afterwards, I like Sunshine State, but it would be great if somebody tapped in to develop this in that way, maybe, or somebody developing it.
I love 8 Men Out.
One.
I think 8 Men Out is like the best baseball movie ever.
Yeah, that's before Lone Star. Yeah, those are all late 80s, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, 8 Men Out and Mate One are probably my favorites. Yeah, I'm looking it up. The last few that he's had, I don't even think I've heard of, but and his most recent directorial effort was 2013. So
I've seen Honey Dripper.
Yeah,
that was 2007.
I interviewed him for that. I was reading a whole story about like the use of music in films, and that is a movie about blues, I want to say, R&B.
I think that's right. Yeah.
So I interviewed him.
Yeah. But I think like City of Hope is just like again with the.
Yeah, I didn't care for City of Hope all that much. Yeah.
I'm going to tell you, and I'm going to tell you what I'm telling you. Secret of Rowan Inish is lovely and completely different from everything else he's ever done.
Yeah. I don't know. I have to think about the heavy-handedness. I did think some of the things were too easy, like Mercedes willing to help the people coming across the river. I mean, I can understand that at one level, but it was a little bit too convenient that she also, was crossing the border in that way.
Right.
So I thought that was a little bit, but I love the character. And I think when I first saw it, I still remember when I first saw it, there's sort of a nostalgia with that. And I had no idea where this movie was going. And I love mystery movies. And I just love the way it played out. And so that's what still resonates with me, even for some of its flaws.
It's a cool little time capsule, though, too, because you've got very young Matthew McConaughey, like before he went on to make all of those terrible 90s, early 2000s rom-coms. Right. And
it's
well
like 2 years
before
after Days of Confused, yeah.
Right. And so he is like, you can see why he was an exciting young talent back then. You've got very young Frances McDormand, like had done a couple of Coen Brothers movies at that
the
point.
Blood Simple was like 87, right?
Yeah.
This is right after Fargo. I remember seeing her Fargo the year before, I think.
She looks like a girl, like a 20-year-old girl. And I was saying to Alonzo, like, oh, they put her like in a Cowboys jersey with an Oilers hat. That's weird. I'm confused by that. But then she's got like A&M and UT stuff all over the place.
Yeah, so it's not about the team. It's just about the game.
There's a lot of stereotypes about Texas that, don't bother me. I mean, you can tell John Sayles is sort of an East Coast director.
Can you really stereotype Texas, though? Because once you've lived there, it's like, this is all...
Fair enough.
See, it's like when people talk about true stories and Dr. T and the Women, I'm like, no, I've seen that stuff. I know those people.
That is true. Well, so Shubha, what is your number then for Lone Star?
I would give it a 9.
Okay.
I think part of it is just my own nostalgia, and I think the way he combines these 3 different stories and puts them together, it's still pretty amazing in my mind.
What about you, Alonzo?
I'm going to say 6, just because this movie just kept actively like reminding me of its moviness in a way that I was just like, oh my God, you have all these ingredients. Just let this speak for itself, John Sayles. So that I found it a frustrating watch this time around.
I'm going to be exactly in between you guys with a 7.5 because I really enjoyed a lot of the performances. Chris Cooper is so like subtly just profoundly deep in this in just like an understated way and kind of weirdly hot. And everyone's good in it, but it is like a little too long and like a little too meandering. And as Alonzo says, a little too on the nose, but a lot of great pieces there. So 7.5.
Always a great cast with Sayles, and he always lets his actors do interesting things and be, the best version of themselves.
For sure. Shubha, so great to meet you. Fantastic choice on your part.
Thank you so much, sir.
Yeah, enjoyed it.